I love being human in my animal self, to be part of this species of humans. I think we're incarnated for that, right? The problem is that we reach a point in our life in the plane of demonstration, the plane of doing, where we realize that we have to do a lot of things to get what we want. In other words, you have a thought that you want a new career or a new relationship or a new, you want to be abundant or you want to be healthy or in shape or whatever it is. And you become aware that you're Andre, local in space and time. And then you think about your dream or your vision, and our mind automatically calculates and predicts how long it's going to take for that to happen. And so here's one point of consciousness, then the future is the other point of consciousness, and the separation between 2 points of consciousness in three-dimensional reality creates time. So in order for me to get that thing, I may have to work harder, I may have to sacrifice and save money, I may have to cheat, I may have to compete, I may have to steal, I may take on a second job, whatever it is, borrow money to have that experience, right? So it takes time and energy to finally arrive at that event. Now, when the event occurs, the emotion from that event takes away the lack or separation from not having it. That's the prize in three-dimensional reality. But some people spend their whole life dreaming in lack and never actually realizing their goals, right? So they're waiting for their wealth to occur to feel abundant. They're waiting for their new relationship to feel love. They're waiting for their healing to feel gratitude and wholeness. They're waiting for the mystical moment to feel awe. They're waiting for their success to feel empowered. They're waiting for something to change in their outer environment to take away the lack or separation from not having it in their inner environment. So for the most part, they're living by cause and effect. So what do when you're matter trying to change matter? You work harder. You try harder, you force, you control, you manipulate. That's what matter does when it's trying to change matter. And so we're rushing constantly in separation for the experience that produces the emotion or the feeling that takes it away, okay? And you can get really good at doing this. You can get really good. You could get trained, you could take courses, you can get coached, you can learn from your mistakes, you could have great parents, whatever it is, you could develop really good habits. And sooner or later, you get better at doing it in a shorter amount of time. Well, that's great. That's really cool. My interest is to teach people, well, gosh, can I actually go to a place where I am a creator? Can I really think about with a clear intention what that future looks like? Could I train and teach my body emotionally what that future feels like before it happens? Now, that goes against a lot of hypnosis. That goes against a lot of programming, because the programming says you need this thing in your outer world to take away the feeling of even drugs, to take away the pain or whatever it is, right? So we've become very dependent on the outer world to change our inner world. And all I'm saying is it's possible then, if you can teach people how to be creators in their life and change the way they think and change the way they feel and feel the emotions of their future before it happens. The cool part of that is that when you're feeling the emotion of your future before it happens, you're not looking for it any longer. Why would you look for it if it feels like it already happened? So then when the synchronicities, when the coincidences, when the serendipities, when the opportunities start showing up in a person's life because they're changing the way they think, the way they act, and the way they feel, they get more involved in the creative process. They're saying, I actually am creating this. Get really good at it and learn how to be a creator in the present moment, in the unknown. Create from the field instead of from matter, instead of three-dimensional reality. If it's not matter that's creating the field, but the field that's creating matter, if I could change the information in the field, can I change the hologram or the slowing down of frequency into matter? And could I shorten the distance between the thought of what I want and the experience of having it if I create from the field instead of from matter? Now that's a whole new experiment, right? Because we gotta get retrained, we got reconditioned, we gotta change a lot of beliefs about that. We got to explain what that field is. We got to teach people how to get beyond themselves and take all of their attention off their body, off of all the elements in their environment, and not think about the predictable future or the familiar past, to disinvest all of their attention, all of their awareness all of their energy off the particle, off of matter, off of the physical three-dimensional world. And if it's particle and wave, put all your attention on that wave function. And that wave function, there's nothing physical or material there, so it's nothing. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's energy and frequency. If you have a person pay more attention to that nothing and teach them that it's rich in frequency and energy, to feel it, to experience it, to relax into it, to become more of it and less of them, somehow there is this dramatic change in the information in a person's biology. So then when you create from wholeness instead of lack and separation, and you teach people how to do that, I think you see it not only effects in their biology, but ultimately effects in their life.
Well, over 80% of people that are in a depression study that are given a placebo, that's 4 out of 5 people, respond to the placebo as well as they do to the antidepressant. Now, that means then that if a person, when they do a brain scan on them before the study and a brain scan after the study, and there are physical changes in their brain just by taking a placebo, it means they're making their own pharmacy of antidepressants by thought alone. The people who were interviewed after the randomized study, that got better from the placebo, couldn't believe that they were given a sugar pill and that their depression healed. They in fact healed by thought alone. I think the greatest example of the nocebo is the story that I start out with in the book, where a man goes to the doctor, isn't feeling well, is diagnosed with cancer. The doctor tells him, we actually interviewed the doctor. He told the patient that he had a terminal cancer and that he had a very short amount of time to live. And the patient said, well, I just want to live through Christmas, and after Christmas, I really don't care. I just want to spend time with my family. And so on New Year's Day, 1 week after Christmas, he dies. When they do an autopsy on his body, he never had the cancer that could kill him. I mean, he died by thought alone. And when you think about dying by thought alone, it makes you wonder what you believe in. And so I think that that's a strong example, but you can give someone a sugar pill and tell them that it's a certain drug, and when they take the drug, they get the side effects of that drug, because some people anticipate a good outcome, consciously or subconsciously, and some people consciously or unconsciously expect a bad outcome. So when they expect that bad outcome, they begin to manufacture the very symptoms of their own belief. 50% of every person that's diagnosed with cancer that are told that they're going to get nauseous after their first chemotherapy treatment, they get nauseous on the drive over to their first chemotherapy treatment, which means they're getting nauseous in anticipation of the event. Well, if 50% of the people can get nauseous on their drive to their first chemotherapy treatment, 50% of the people watching your show can get healthy on their on their way to work. It's the same process. It's just teaching people how the mechanism works. So when I wrote Placebo, I thought something really simple. If I understood the science behind how the placebo works, and there is a science behind it, people make their own dopamine by thought alone, their own antidepressants, their own morphines, and all these placebo studies. Once people understand the principles of it, can you teach them how to do the same exact thing? In other words, instead of relying on some external substance, like a pill that has no efficacy, no drug in it, that pill represents a symbol of possibility. Can you teach a person how to, instead of put their belief in something known, put their belief in an unknown and begin to change their biology every single day so that unknown becomes a known? And it turns out it's absolutely teachable. Well, Beecher was one of the first people in the Western world to show that people can begin to manufacture their own morphine by thought alone. And Beecher was a physician in World War II that was on the front lines, and he ran out of morphine to do his surgical procedures. So between him and a few nurses, they conjured up a way to give the soldiers an injection of saline. It was nothing more than salt. And when they made it more of a ritual, where they told them that we had the drugs, here's what's going to help you, and they gave them the suggestion that they were going to get the real substance, Beecher was able to perform all of his surgeries without any morphine, and the soldiers reported very little pain during the process. So that sounds mysterious. It sounds like it's impossible, but it's in fact the truth. Or the children in Japan that were exposed to poison ivy that had a very high sensitivity to the leaf. They took a leaf that looked a lot like poison ivy and told them that it was the poison ivy, and it wasn't. And they rubbed the leaf on them, and they had the rash. Then they took the poison ivy and told them it was just an inert leaf and rubbed it on them, and they didn't get the rash, which means on some level they became immune to the condition by thought alone, and they began to make their own antihistamines in response to it naturally. And then, of course, the great story is the great sham surgery that was done on World War II veterans that had degenerative knee conditions, arthritic conditions in their knee. And some people got the real surgery. Some people got what's called a lavage, which is they make the incision and they use high pressure of water to clean the joint out. And then there are a group of men that just got a nick, just a cut on the knee. Of course, they made it look like it was a real surgery. They gave them the anesthesia. The doctor told them what they were going to do. And within a very short amount of time, the people that got the sham surgery, that never got the surgical procedure, who were limping, who had very limited range of motion, all of a sudden had a very significant change. And interviewing them years later, they're still playing basketball with their grandchildren. So it begs the question then, how is it then that the body can actually manufacture these its natural substances? And Benedetti is, I think, one of the leading researchers, Fabrizio Benedetti, in the placebo studies, because when researchers and physicians and doctors said it's just a placebo, Benedetti was the ones that said, well, wait a second. If there's some efficacy, if there's some outcome that's being created biologically, let's start to measure. So as an example, he took a group of people with Parkinson's disease, which is a deficiency in dopamine in the brain. And when there's not enough dopamine in the brain, the motor neurons can't communicate well with each other, and it creates involuntary tremors. Those people with Parkinson's can try as they may to control it with their conscious mind, but they can't because it's physiological. So Benedetti said, okay, we're going to do this study with Parkinson's, and we're going to give people an injection, and we're going to tell them that they're getting a very powerful substance. And he conditioned them for a little bit, but 50% of those people that got the placebo, all of their symptoms went away. Well, the initial response was it was just a placebo. But Benedetti said, wait a second. If their tremors went away, is it possible that they're making their own pharmacy of dopamine? And so he devised a study in which he said, okay, if they're making their own dopamine, then dopamine will be in receptor sites in the brain. And if we inject a radioactive dye that fits in the same receptor sites, dopamine got there first, and we won't see any radioactive dye in the brain when we image it. But if the brain isn't making its own dopamine, and we put the radioactive dye in that fits in the same receptor sites, dopamine will not be there, and the radioactive dye will, which means the brain will image and light up with a lot of radioactivity. Turns out that these people were making 200 times the amount of dopamine just by thought alone, which means it's not magic any longer, it's physiological. There are changes biologically that are taking place in the brain. There are changes epigenetically that are taking place on a cellular level. And when people begin to really wrap their mind around this, I begin to wonder how effective real medication is. Because maybe we're just conditioned into putting our faith and belief in something outside of us, and a pill is something that we associate with whatever condition we're trying to heal. And there's no studies any longer in medical science and pharmacology and research that never consider the placebo. In other words, there's triple-blind studies for every drug that's being done, which means the researchers and the subjects have no idea who's getting the real drug and who's getting the placebo, because the power of the mind in the placebo study can range from 10% up to 100%, depending on the... There is a concept in neuroscience that's become the latest great explanation to understand the process of change and transformation. And that concept is called neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity says that from every new thought that we have, every new choice we make, every new behavior we demonstrate, every new experience we have, every new emotion that we embrace, there are physical changes that take place in the brain. And every time you learn something new, as an example, you make new connections in your brain. The latest research shows that if you just focus on one concept, study one concept for about an hour, you will double the number of connections in your brain. But the challenge is, if you don't review that information and you don't repeat it, those circuits don't hold together. So learning is making new synaptic connections, and remembering is maintaining them. So then, if people are thinking the same way, they're making the same choices, they're demonstrating the same behaviors, creating the same experiences, and producing the same emotions, then we won't see many physical changes taking place in their brain. In fact, the old model that we're hardwired, or that we can't grow new neurons, was based on a study where a researcher was studying rodents in an unchanging environment. And of course, if it's an unchanging environment, they're not doing anything new, and their biology stays the same. So then you think a thought, that thought produces a biochemical reaction in your brain. That biochemical reaction in your brain signals another part of your brain to begin to make a chemical. And that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion.
Your personal reality is creating your personality. Your environment is controlling how you think and feel. Yes or no? And as long as you're reacting equal to your environment, you should create more of the same environment. Come on. And there should be a nice biological dance, a perfect match between your neurocircuitry, your chemistry, your genes, your hormones, with what's going on in your life. There's a tango going on between your inner world and your outer world. Yes or no? Yes. So then, your environment is actually controlling you. You're a victim to the circumstances in your life. And you see the person, you unconsciously react. You go to the certain place and you think about in the past how it was. And so then, if how you think and how you feel creates your state of being, and you keep thinking the same thought that keeps producing the same emotion, that same emotion is influencing how you're thinking. You're hardwiring your brain and conditioning your body emotionally into the past, yes? And if you do that enough times, thinking and feeling in the same way, the body becomes the mind of that emotion. Now the servant has become the master, and the body's running the show. Yes or no? And so then, if the body then has become the mind of that emotion, then to change then would be becoming greater than your body. Yes or no? And if your environment has that much influence on how you're thinking and feeling, then to change then is to be greater than your environment. Yes or no? And if you're waking up every single morning, coming back to your senses, looking at the person next to you saying, oh my God, who is that? How did I get here? Jeez. Wait, let me think of all my problems. Okay, I'm starting to feel like myself. Let me get my cell phone. Let me check. Okay, now I'm feeling like myself. And then you get up and you go through the same routine behaviors in your habitat. You have the vision of the toilet, and the next thing you know, you're in front of the toilet. Then while you're on the toilet, you have the vision of the coffee maker, and there you are, you're in front of the coffee maker. And then while you're drinking your coffee, you have the vision of the shower, and there you are in the shower. And while you're in the shower, you get super creative about the clothes you're going to wear, and next thing you know, you're dressed. And your body is always following your mind, but it's following it to the known. Are you with me still? And let's just say you drive to work the same way and see the same people and go to the same grocery store and buy the same food and watch the same television shows. And then you get in front of the mirror at night and you put your lotions and potions and creams on and floss the same way and brush your teeth. And you go to bed and you wake up in the morning and you're doing the same exact thing. Yes or no? Yes. Would you agree then we can take your past and lift it up and set it on your future? Yes or no? Now, that's karma. That's it. That's karma right there. And so then if you've done that enough times, a habit is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through frequent repetition. A habit is when you've done something so many times, your body now knows how to do it better than your mind. Are you with me still? So if you wake up in the morning and you're doing that, would you agree then your body's on autopilot? And it's dragging you into a predictable future based on what you did in the past. And you're unconscious. Yes or no? And I assert that when you are not in the present moment, you're running a program. So don't take anything personally from somebody, because they're just running a program as well. Are you with me still? So then, think about this. Would you agree then that if you are going to heal your body by thought alone, to create some new experience in your environment by thought alone, to create some new future that's no longer your past by thought alone, then you would have to become thought alone? Yes or no? Yes. Come on. Yes. So then would you agree then if your environment is so strong in conditioning you into the past, would you agree then maybe it'd be a good idea to sit down at the beginning of your day, close your eyes, and disconnect from your external environment? Yes or no? So then if you're seeing less things in your external environment because you've closed your eyes, all of a sudden now, your environment isn't going to control how you think and feel. Yes or no? And what if you were to play soft music in the background or put earplugs in and diminish more sensory information coming in from the environment? Would you agree you'd start putting more attention on your inner world instead of on your outer world? And what if you said to your body, hey, sit right here and stay right here. Don't you get up yet until I tell you it's time to get up. And your body is going to buck and kick like an unbridled stallion. I'm busy. I got a lot to do. I got emails to check. I got meetings to go to. Because you programmed it that way, yes or no? Yes. And every time you say to the body, stay, are you telling it it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind? Yes or no? Yes. And now the will is becoming greater than the program. Yes or no? And all of a sudden, if you became conscious that you were angry or emotional or suffering, and you became aware that that emotion was keeping you into the past and driving your brain into high beta, and you became aware of it, and then you settled your body back down into the present moment, and you kept taking it out of the past, sooner or later the animal is going to surrender. Yes or no? And when it does, you are going to liberate energy. You are going to go from particle to wave, from matter to energy. And when that happens now, all of a sudden, you start feeling a little bit more joy, and energy starts to move right there. Are you with me still? Yes. And if you are uncompromising to the eternal present moment, the generous present moment, and you keep coming back to the present moment, coming back to the present moment, and you understand where you place your attention is where you place your energy, and you're no longer thinking about the people you have to see and the places you have to go and your cell phone and your computer and your emails and the news, and you keep returning your attention back to the present moment, would you agree then you're disinvesting your energy out of the known future and you're making room for the unknown in your life? Yes or no? So then, in meditation then, if you are literally going to make some type of change and affect your outer world, you're going to have to put most of your attention on your inner world, and you're going to have to become greater than the conditions in your environment and disconnect from your